Welcome to Zoe Stories. Wife gave me an impossible choice, or dress like a woman. The clock on the wall ticked loudly, echoing through the empty living room. I sat slouched on the leather couch, staring at the muted TV and trying to focus, but my mind refused. Every tick felt heavier than the last, like a countdown to something I couldn't avoid. My heart was pounding, not with excitement, but with dread. Tonight, I would cross a line I never imagined crossing. Tonight, I had no choice. My name is Alex. Or at least that's what I've always told the world. The me everyone sees, the husband, the office worker, the man who makes quiet jokes and keeps his head down. But there's another side of me, a side I've kept locked away, hidden under layers of clothes, hesitation, and shame. That side is Alexandra. My secret life. My identity that only I could understand. The side I only revealed when the world wasn't watching. And now, my secret was about to collide with my marriage in a way I wasn't ready for. I work in a marketing firm, 9 to 5, always on deadlines and always playing a role. My colleagues know me as calm, dependable, the guy who never shakes under pressure. But what they didn't know, and could never guess, was that behind the neatly pressed suits and the trimmed beard, I had a life I hid even from myself. On weekends, when the apartment was empty, I would transform. I'd change into skirts, wear makeup, slip on heels, and look into the mirror at a version of me that was free, alive, and terrifyingly beautiful. Alexandra was the me that I never let Alex see. It wasn't always about desire. Sometimes it was necessity. There were days I felt trapped in a role that didn't fit. I wasn't unhappy as Alex, but I was incomplete. And Alexandra, she filled a space I didn't even know existed, a space I couldn't explain without shame or fear. That life had been mine alone, safe and secret. Until Emma, my wife, my partner, the one person I thought could never understand. Or maybe I thought she wouldn't want to. She's sharp, beautiful, and fiercely independent. She has this aura, this confidence that draws people in, and it terrifies me because she sees through everyone. She's always noticed the little things, the tiny tells, the subtle changes in my mood or tone. And I've spent years hiding the biggest part of myself from her. Our relationship is a mix of love, routine, and quiet tension. We've built a life together, comfortable and predictable. But beneath it all, I've carried this secret like a ticking bomb. Every time I left for work, every time I smiled at her in the kitchen, I was hiding something monumental. The thought of her discovering Alexandra filled me with equal parts thrill and panic. And tonight, she would force me to confront it in a way I had never imagined. The first time she mentioned it, I laughed. I thought it was a joke. Emma leaned back against the kitchen counter, arms crossed, an almost playful smirk on her face. "Alex," she said, eyes glinting with that dangerous curiosity I both love and fear. "Yes," I replied cautiously. "I have a proposition for you," she said, tone light, teasing. "A proposition?" I raised an eyebrow. "Yes," she said, voice softening into something heavier. "A challenge." I had laughed. "A challenge? What kind of challenge?" She didn't answer immediately, just looked at me, her gaze steady, unsettling, like she was reading me completely. "You have two options," she said finally, and I could feel the weight in her words. "One is simple, comfortable, predictable. The other is impossible. And it involves you becoming someone else. Someone you've kept hidden." My blood ran cold. I felt my pulse spike. Every nerve in my body screamed warning. My chest tightened. "Impossible," I repeated, trying to mask the panic. "What do you mean?" She smiled faintly, not cruelly but knowingly. "I mean, Alex, you know who you really are, the person you hide. Alexandra. You've been secretive, careful, meticulous. But tonight, I want to see her. I want to see you embrace her completely. Or reject her entirely. Your choice." The room spun. My stomach lurched. I felt exposed in a way I had never felt before. Every ounce of control I thought I had over my secret life slipped through my fingers like sand. I wanted to protest. I wanted to say it was impossible, that I couldn't. that I wouldn't. But I couldn't. Because in the back of my mind, a small, forbidden part of me, the part that thrilled at Alexandra's existence, screamed for it. I don't understand, I stammered. She stepped closer, lowering her voice, forcing me to meet her eyes. You do. You know exactly what I mean. And I know exactly what you've been hiding. I can see it in the way you look at your reflection, the way your hands fidget, the way you never truly relax. You're afraid I'll see you. But I already do. Her words cut into me, raw and precise. The thought that she already knew, already suspected, terrified me. But beneath the fear was something else. Something I hadn't admitted even to myself. Excitement. A pulse of adrenaline that I couldn't ignore. I swallowed hard. And the other choice? She tilted her head, eyes narrowing just slightly. The other choice, she said softly, is to reject Alexandra entirely. Stay Alex. Safe, predictable, hidden but forever incomplete. You can choose comfort. Or you can choose to reveal her to me. To the world. To yourself. The words hung in the air. A challenge. A threat. A test. I closed my eyes. The apartment was silent. My mind raced. Every scenario played out in rapid fire. Humiliation, liberation, heartbreak, triumph. Every possibility seemed terrifying, every outcome irreversible. And yet, in the back of my mind, I knew there was no turning back. Not tonight. I opened my eyes to meet hers. Her expression was unreadable, sharp, waiting, daring me to make the choice. My chest heaved. My fingers trembled. Every instinct screamed to run, to hide, to stay safe. But Alexandra whispered from the shadows of my mind. It's time. I swallowed hard. I'll do it, I whispered, almost to myself. Her smile widened, just a little, but it didn't reach her eyes. Good, she said. But remember, once you start, there's no going back. Are you ready to see just how impossible it really is? I nodded, though my heart raced with terror and anticipation. The room felt smaller now, charged with the electricity of what was about to happen. My life, the comfortable, hidden, predictable life of Alex, was about to collide with the thrilling, forbidden, and impossible world of Alexandra. And in that instant I realized tonight, everything would change. The world around me spun as my cousin grabbed my wrist and pulled me deeper into the dim hallway. Her nails dug into my skin. Not enough to hurt, but enough to remind me she was in control. The house was silent, too silent like it was holding its breath. Don't freak out, she whispered. Which, obviously, is exactly what people say right before something horrifying. My heart hammered. What did you do? I asked, my voice trembling. She turned to face me. Her smile wasn't evil, it was worse. It was calm, confident, like everything was going exactly the way she planned. You still don't get it, do you? She said softly. This wasn't an accident. None of it. My throat tightened. The makeover, the clothes, the emergency sleepover, me telling you to trust me. She took a step closer, her perfume overwhelming, almost hypnotic. I needed you to change. I needed you to become someone else. A cold wave shot through my spine. But why me? I whispered. She brushed her fingers lightly across my cheek, almost affectionate, almost terrifying. Because you're the only one who fits, she murmured. The only one who looks enough like her. Her who? She didn't answer. Instead, she grabbed a locked drawer from under the shelf, pulled out a small metallic box, and opened it with a key hidden under her necklace. Inside, a photo. My stomach dropped. A girl. Beautiful. Sharp eyes. Long hair in soft waves. Wearing almost the exact makeup she'd put on me hours ago. Who is she? Asked, my voice cracking. She exhaled slowly. My sister. I blinked. You don't have a sister. Her smile turned sharper. I did. A chill crawled across my skin. She disappeared 3 years ago, she continued. Everyone thinks she ran away. But I know the truth. She looked at me, her eyes heavy with something between grief and obsession. She was taken. I stepped back. What does this have to do with me? Look at the picture again. I lifted it closer. The angle of the jaw, the eyes, the mouth. My pulse hit the ceiling. I looked exactly like her. Like a perfect echo. Almost too perfect. My cousin's voice dropped to a whisper. They took her because of how she looked. And now. Her fingers curled behind my neck, pulling me forward. I need them to think she's back. My breath froze. She opened a closet door beside us, revealing not clothes, but equipment.
Lights.
Cameras. A vanity setup. Rows of dresses.
Wigs.
Heels. Everything labeled, organized, prepared. This wasn't a hobby. This was a mission. A mission she'd been preparing for years. I stumbled back, my legs shaking. You want me to pretend to be your missing sister? No, she said, stepping forward. I want you to become her. My heartbeat roared in my ears.
Why?
For what? Her lips trembled, not with fear. With determination. Because the person who took her left a message. She pulled a slip of paper from her pocket. A message in jagged handwriting. Bring her back if you want answers. They think she's still alive, she whispered. And they want her returned. My chest tightened. So you're sending me? She nodded. You're the only one who looks like her. Her voice broke just a little. And you're the only one I trust not to die. My breath left my body. I wasn't being feminized for fun. I wasn't being pranked. I wasn't being experimented on. I was being prepared. Prepared to walk into danger. Prepared to face someone who had stolen her blood. Prepared to become a living bait. And my cousin, the sweet, friendly girl I grew up with, had orchestrated everything. Her hands grabbed my shoulders, grounding me, trapping me. We don't have time, she said urgently. They think you're her. They're watching. Tonight is the first test. I swallowed hard.
Test.
She pulled out a phone. An unknown number flashing. My stomach twisted. They're calling, she whispered. They want to see you. Right now. The phone rang again. My cousin's finger hovered over the answer button. Her eyes locked onto mine.
Soft.
Afraid.
Desperate.
Please, she breathed. If you don't do this, she's gone forever. The phone kept ringing. Louder.
Faster.
Sharper. Every instinct told me to run. But every instinct also told me, if I didn't pick up that call, the nightmare had only just started. She pressed the phone into my shaking hand, and the moment I answered, a distorted voice whispered, "You're late, come outside." The voice on the phone echoed in my skull long after the call ended. Come outside. Those two words squeezed my lungs like an iron grip. My cousin grabbed my hand before I could drop the phone. Don't panic, she whispered. Her voice was brave. Her eyes were not. Outside? Who was waiting? Why now? My legs trembled so hard they felt detached from my body, like they didn't want to obey me anymore. My cousin tightened her grip. They won't hurt you, she said. Then she swallowed hard. Not yet. That not yet hit me like a punch. We reached the front door. The air on the other side felt thick, dangerous, alive. My cousin peeked through the curtain. Her entire body went still. What? I whispered. She didn't blink. Didn't breathe. Didn't move. Black car, she murmured. Windows tinted. Her voice cracked. That's the same model they used when they took her. My heart stopped. They're here for you, she said. I couldn't breathe. Everything inside me screamed run, but something stronger pulled me toward the door.
Fear.
Curiosity. Responsibility. I didn't know what it was, but it pushed me forward until I was standing right at the threshold. My cousin touched my cheek, adjusting a stray lock of my hair, her hands shaking like she was preparing a sacrificial lamb. Remember, she whispered, you're her, not you. The handle felt ice-cold in my palm as I slowly opened the door. The night greeted me with a cold breeze that whispered secrets of its own. The car's engine hummed, slow, low, predatory. The driver's door opened. My breath hitched. A figure stepped out.
Tall.
Dark coat. Gloves. Face hidden behind a mask. Not a ski mask, not a cheap disguise. Something professional.
Sleek.
Almost military. He didn't come toward me. He just stood there. Watching. Waiting. Something about him felt familiar. Like a memory I couldn't reach was scratching at my brain. He tilted his head slightly, studying me. Then, he bowed.
Not deeply.
Just enough to acknowledge me. "Miss," he said with a chilling politeness, "you look well." My blood froze solid. He thought I was her. He really believed it. Who are you?" I forced out. He lifted a small device like a remote or a pager. A red light blinked twice. Immediately, another car door opened and someone stepped out from the back. My breath caught in my throat. A woman.
Tall.
Dressed sharply. Hair pinned up as if she stepped out of a corporate battlefield. But the scar running from her cheekbone to her jaw ruined her otherwise perfect look. Her eyes locked onto mine, piercing, unreadable. "You made us wait," she said calmly. Her voice was soft, but carried steel under it. The kind that warned you not to underestimate her. She stepped closer. One slow step. My cousin hid behind the doorframe, watching with terror. The woman circled me once, examining every inch of me like I was a project she was checking for flaws. "You've grown," she murmured. Different, softer. My heart pounded. "Where is she?" I whispered. "My cousin, your sister, where is she?" The woman paused. Her expression didn't change. Not a flicker. Not a twitch. "She's safe," she said.
A lie.
I could feel it, taste it. My bones knew it. Her eyes sharpened. "But whether she stays safe." She touched my chin with a cold, gloved hand. "Depend entirely on you." I froze in place. Then she stepped back and made a gesture to the masked man. "Bring the case." He opened the car's back seat and pulled out a sleek black box with reinforced edges, something between a briefcase and a weapon vault. The woman offered it to me. "For you," she said. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. "What's inside?" I asked. She smiled faintly. "A final piece before we decide whether you're truly her." My cousin shook her head from behind the door, eyes pleading with me not to touch it. My shaking hands lifted the case anyway, because if this was the only link to the girl who disappeared, I had no choice. The locks clicked open. The lid lifted. And inside, my world shattered. It wasn't makeup. It wasn't clothes. It wasn't a weapon. It was a silver mask. Perfectly molded. Delicate. Beautiful. Identical to the mask in the photo on the missing girl's last known day. My cousin gasped from inside the house. The woman stepped close again. "Put it on," she whispered. "Show me you're ready." My hands shook violently as I held the mask. This wasn't a test of appearance anymore. This was a test of identity, of loyalty, of survival. The woman leaned in so close I could feel her breath on my cheek. "If you're really her," she murmured, "you'll remember what happens next." My heart dropped. "What happens next?" I whispered. She smiled, and whispered one sentence that turned my bones to ice. "The moment you put on that mask, your old life ends." The living room felt smaller than ever, the walls closing in with every second I stayed still. Emma had left for her quick errand, but her words still echoed in my ears. "You know what I want. Are you ready to see just how impossible it really is?" Impossible. That single word had lodged itself into my mind like a splinter. I had never felt such a combination of fear and anticipation. My body reacted before my brain could even form a plan. My hands shook, my palms sweated, and my stomach twisted itself into knots. I glanced at the bedroom door, the closet, the dresser drawers. Every potential hiding spot or tool for transformation seemed simultaneously inviting and terrifying. Alexandra had been waiting for nights like this, hidden beneath layers of Alex, unseen and untouched. And tonight, I was being commanded, no, forced, by the person I loved most, to let her out fully. The thought alone made me inhale sharply. Could I? Should I? Was I ready to cross that line from private indulgence to public revelation within the walls of our home? My first step was the closet. It smelled faintly of cedarwood and fabric softener. Emma's perfume lingered like a ghost. I pulled open the door slowly. Dresses hung neatly, skirts folded, shoes arranged by heel height and color. My hands hovered over a silky black dress, its texture smooth beneath my fingertips. The dress was beautiful, elegant, and utterly alien to the Alex I had been moments before. I felt my pulse spike as I remembered Emma's warning. Once you start, there's no going back. The moment I picked up the dress, a shiver ran down my spine. The thrill of it, the danger, the secretive pleasure of transformation. I hadn't felt anything this intense in years. It wasn't just fabric. It was a key to a part of myself that had always whispered, always nudged, always begged for acknowledgement. I held it to my chest, staring at my reflection in the mirror. The Alex staring back at me seemed unsure, frightened, but also tinged with curiosity. My heart raced as I imagined Alexandra's form, her grace, her poise, her confidence. And yet I hesitated. Fear tangled with desire in a knot too tight to unravel. Emma's words replayed in my mind. Choose comfort, or embrace the impossible. The impossible was staring me in the mirror, whispering for recognition. Could I do it? Could I willingly step into a role I had only ever dreamed of in private, under the safe shroud of night, and expose it, even if only to myself, for the first time fully? I placed the dress on the bed carefully. My hands shook so violently I thought I might knock over the lamp. Then, deliberately, I closed the closet doors. There was no going back. Not yet. I turned toward the makeup kit Emma had set out earlier. It was neatly organized. Foundation, powder, eyeshadows in muted and bold shades, brushes lined like soldiers. Every item seemed purposeful, carefully chosen for me. My fingers trembled as I picked up the foundation, remembering the first time I had ever applied it in secret, hiding from Alex's world. Back then, it had felt exhilarating and illicit.
Tonight, it was terrifying.
I dabbed the cream on my skin, blending with slow, deliberate motions. My reflection shifted subtly, Alex's masculine edges softening under the layers of pigment. The transformation wasn't complete, not yet, but the first hint of Alexandra peeked through. My chest tightened with a strange mixture of panic and exhilaration. I couldn't breathe normally. Each inhale felt like a gamble, each exhale a surrender to the impossible. Next came the eyes. I selected a soft brown eyeshadow first, cautiously sweeping it over my eyelids. Then eyeliner, meticulously tracing along the lash line, creating a sharper, more feminine shape. My reflection grew unfamiliar. Alexandra's gaze stared back at me, confident and sharp, mocking my hesitation. My lips trembled as I applied the subtle pink lipstick, the color burning through layers of doubt and fear. Then came the hardest part, choosing the shoes.
Heels.
Always the heels. Emma had left a pair of black stilettos with delicate straps on the floor, waiting for me. I stared at them as if they were instruments of fate themselves. Slipping them onto my feet, I wobbled instinctively, my balance off-kilter. Alexandra demanded poise, grace, a mastery I did not yet possess. But the act itself, the surrender, made my stomach flutter, and somewhere in that flutter was a spark of forbidden excitement. I took my first tentative step. The floor creaked beneath the weight, and I stumbled slightly. Alexandra would have walked without hesitation, without thought. I caught myself on the edge of the dresser, heart pounding, realizing how fragile this new version of me was, how exposed, how vulnerable. Then came the dress. I stepped into it slowly, pulling the soft fabric over my shoulders. Every inch of it felt alien, yet electric. It clung to my body in ways Alex never would have allowed, highlighting curves I had hidden for years. I zipped it up slowly, feeling the world shrink to the narrow space between me and the mirror. The reflection was no longer Alex. Alexandra was here, breathing in and out, alive, dangerous, and impossibly beautiful. My hands lifted to my hair, brushing it out, adjusting strands until it framed my face perfectly. Each motion felt ritualistic, sacred, terrifying. I was no longer simply preparing for Emma's challenge. I was crossing a line into a reality I had dreamed of, feared, and longed for in secret. And then, the sound of the doorbell. I froze. Emma wasn't supposed to be home yet. The sound echoed like a gunshot through the apartment. My pulse doubled. Was it her coming back early? Or worse, someone else? I glanced at my cousin. At myself in the mirror, seeing Alexandra fully now, poised, trembling, vulnerable, yet alive. The thrill of being caught mixed with the terror of exposure, creating a storm of adrenaline that made my chest feel too tight, my legs too weak. I tiptoed toward the door, clutching the dress to steady myself, the heels amplifying each heartbeat. Alexandra demanded perfection. Alex demanded survival. And somewhere, deep inside, I realized I couldn't separate them anymore. The impossible choice wasn't just about the dress. It was about who I truly was, who I was willing to become, and who I might lose if I failed. The doorbell rang again, longer this time, impatient. I inhaled. I exhaled. Tonight, the impossible begins. The doorbell's echo still vibrated through the apartment as I tiptoed toward the door, every fiber of my body screaming in warning. My reflection in the hallway mirror froze me for a second. Alexandra's eyes stared back, wide, alive, and impossible. The pink of my lips, the soft curve of my shoulders in the dress, the delicate arch of my brows, it all made me feel exposed in a way I had never known. I wasn't hiding anymore. Not fully. And someone or EMA could see me at any moment. I swallowed hard, my throat dry as sandpaper. My hand hovered over the doorknob. Each second stretched like taffy, slow and unbearable. My mind raced with worst-case scenarios. What if she had returned early? What if she was standing on the other side, seeing me like this, Alexandra in full bloom, trembling, helpless? What if she laughed? Or worse, screamed? My pulse thudded violently against my ribcage as I forced myself to think rationally. Rationally meant, open the door. I pulled it open just a crack. The hallway was empty. Relief washed over me, sharp and fleeting. I peeked down the street. Nobody. No car. No suspicious figure. Just the normal hum of life outside, a cruel contrast to the chaos inside me. I shut the door slowly, almost wishing someone had been there to witness me. Part of me yearned for exposure, for confirmation that Alexandra was real, not just a fantasy trapped in my private moments. But the danger lingered. Every sound, every creak of the floor, felt amplified. The air felt thick with tension, and I realized I had no clear plan. The dress clung to my skin as if alive, a constant reminder that I couldn't go back. I wasn't just wearing a piece of clothing. I was stepping into a persona that demanded attention, confidence, and deception all at once. I moved toward the bedroom again, instinctively checking the dresser drawers for any final details that might complete the transformation. Emma had left a small jewelry box open, a subtle prompt. Earrings, bracelets, a delicate necklace. My hands shook as I picked up a pair of dangling silver earrings. They felt heavier than expected, almost symbolic of the weight I was taking on. I carefully fastened them, the metallic click echoing like a tiny declaration of commitment. Alexandra was no longer hiding. She was emerging one delicate motion at a time. Next came the hair. Emma had provided a wig, long and soft, in shades that perfectly matched Alexandra's imagined self. My hands hesitated, trembling as I lifted it. For years, I had only touched wigs with tentative curiosity, never fully committing. Tonight was different. Tonight, the wig was a crown, the symbol of transformation. Carefully, I placed it on my head, adjusting the strands to frame my face. My reflection shifted. The girl in the mirror no longer resembled Alex at all. Alexandra gazed back, impossibly poised, impossibly beautiful, impossibly real. A soft gasp escaped my lips, not loud enough to draw attention, but enough for me to hear. The sound startled me, echoing through the apartment like a prelude to disaster. My pulse quickened. Alexandra's reality was intoxicating, but so was the fear. Every fiber of my body screamed that I wasn't safe, that being seen like this was dangerous. And yet, a small, forbidden thrill coursed through me, a recognition that I had never experienced. I was almost ready. Almost. But something felt off. My reflection wasn't complete without the final touch, the shoes. The black stilettos waited patiently by the bed, polished and cruel. I knelt, slipping each foot inside, feeling the unfamiliar elevation of my heels. Balance became a challenge. Every tentative step sent tiny jolts of panic through my legs. Alexandra demanded grace, poise, elegance. Alex demanded survival. I realized that merging the two would require more than just posture. It would require courage. The sudden sound of a knock at the door froze me mid-step. Not the doorbell. This was lighter, quieter, more deliberate. My stomach dropped. Someone was inside the building. Someone was here. My pulse skyrocketed. I had no weapon, no escape plan. I was dressed to seduce a reflection, not to face the real world. I froze, my ears straining. The knock came again, slow and deliberate. Whoever it was knew I was alone, or at least thought I was. Alexandra and Alex collided inside me, fear and curiosity wrestling for control. I could either hide, run, or confront. Hiding felt impossible. My clothes screamed for attention. Running in these heels was an accident waiting to happen. Confrontation might be my only option. I crept toward the door, careful to keep my steps light, my breath shallow. The door opened a mere crack. Peering through, I saw nobody. Just the hallway, empty, ordinary. My heart refused to slow down. The knock, the sound it had come from inside. Spinning around, I realized Emma's bedroom door was slightly ajar. My mind raced. Could she have returned early? Was this some kind of test? The fear was suffocating. Every sense was heightened. The soft rustle of fabric against my legs, the faint scent of perfume lingering in the air, the cold touch of the door handle under my fingers. Every detail screamed reality. Every moment demanded perfection. Alexandra could not falter. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to focus. I had to finish the transformation. If I was going to step into this impossible world, I had to commit. I grabbed a small compact, checking my reflection one last time. Eyes, perfect. Lips, soft but defined. Hair, flowing, controlled. Earrings, aligned. Dress, falling gracefully. Heels, balanced. And yet the knock returned. Louder this time. Deliberate. Demanding. I realized, with a sinking feeling, that whatever awaited me wasn't a coincidence. This was the next step, the escalation, the first real taste of danger intertwined with desire. Alexandra had to face it. I had to face it. I stepped back from the mirror. Heart racing, legs shaking, mind spinning. The world outside my door felt impossibly vast and terrifying. And I knew, without a doubt, that the moment I opened it, nothing would ever be the same.
This was more than a challenge.
More than a test. More than a transformation. This was the beginning of a storm I could not escape. And I, Alexandra, was standing directly in its path. The knocking didn't stop. Each rap against the door reverberated through the apartment like a warning bell, sending chills down my spine. My fingers were numb on the doorknob, yet I couldn't move. Alexandra's reflection in the hallway mirror stared back at me with unwavering calm, her composure demanding courage that Alex barely possessed. I took a slow, deliberate breath. My legs trembled beneath me, heels threatening to betray my balance at any moment. I needed to decide. Hide, confront, or flee. Hiding felt impossible. The dress clung to my body, my wig shifting slightly with each step, and every motion made the apartment feel smaller, more vulnerable. Running, well, in these heels, a sprint was a liability. That left confrontation. I slowly turned the doorknob, wincing at the creak of the hinges. The hallway was empty. Nothing. No one. My heart thundered in my ears. Could I be imagining the knocking? The thrill and fear blended into a dizzying cocktail, leaving me lightheaded. Then I heard it, a soft, deliberate click behind me. My blood ran cold. The sound was distinct, intimate, unmistakable. Someone had unlocked Emma's bedroom door fully. I whipped around. A shadow moved in the room.
Slow.
Calculated. Watching. Hello, I whispered, my voice trembling. No response, just silence. My reflection in the mirror caught movement again, Alexandra poised and tense, a sharp contrast to my own quivering. My pulse skyrocketed. The shadow emerged. Emma? No, taller, broader. The silhouette exuded authority, confidence, danger. Who's there? I demanded, trying to inject courage into my voice. Relax, a calm, almost amused voice replied. I'm not here to hurt you yet. My stomach dropped.
Yet.
That single word was enough to send panic surging through my veins. Alexandra surged forward in instinct, Alex recoiling in fear. I had to stay in control. The figure stepped into the light. My eyes widened. A man, sharp suit, black leather gloves, and piercing eyes that seemed to see through my very soul. He held a small envelope in one hand and gestured with the other toward the bedroom door. You're late, he said simply. She's waiting. She? I stammered, my voice cracking. Who's waiting? His gaze didn't waver. The woman who sent me. He dropped the envelope onto the floor in front of me. My hands shook violently as I bent down to pick it up. The seal was crimson, intact, heavy with importance. My breath hitched as I broke it open. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Handwriting deliberate, elegant, threatening.
Dress.
Become her. The world is watching. My legs went numb. Alexandra's gaze hardened in the mirror. Alex's chest tightened. The impossible was no longer hypothetical. It was now.
Right now.
The man stepped closer, tilting his head as if evaluating me. Time is critical. If you fail, he didn't finish the sentence. I didn't need him to. The weight of his gaze told me enough. Failure wasn't an option. Why me? I managed, voice trembling. Why not someone else? He smirked faintly, an expression devoid of amusement. Because she sees herself in you. And because you can convince others that she is alive. That is what matters. I swallowed hard. Convince others? Alive? My mind raced. Alexandra's persona surged, poised, fierce, commanding. Alex faltered, scared and overwhelmed. The room felt impossibly small, the air thick with tension, fear, and anticipation. I had no choice.
The dress.
The wig. The heels. The makeup. Everything Yemme had prepared. It wasn't a game. It wasn't a test of loyalty. It was a necessity. A dangerous necessity. I straightened my shoulders, took a deep breath, and whispered to my reflection. This is you now. No going back. The man nodded slightly, as if reading my thoughts. Good. Remember, every detail counts. Every movement, every gesture, they are watching. Watching. I echoed, panic rising. Who's watching? Everyone who matters, he said simply. And they will know if you fail. I glanced down at the envelope again. Inside, beneath the message, was a small photo me, dressed as Alexandra, standing in the very same black dress I now wore. Only the eyes were different, sharper, intent, hungry, watching me. A cold shiver ran through my spine. It wasn't just a warning. It was a premonition. The man stepped back, producing a small handheld camera. We'll record this, he said, voice flat. Every move. Alexandra must be convincing. Convincing. The word hit me like a hammer. This wasn't just transformation, it was performance under scrutiny, under threat, under danger. Every detail mattered. The tilt of my head, the curve of my smile, the sway of the dress. My pulse roared in my ears. The man moved toward the door. Start practicing. She'll arrive soon. Don't fail. I nodded, though my body shook uncontrollably. The envelope slipped from my hands to the floor. Alexandra's reflection in the mirror didn't flinch. She was calm.
Poised.
Ready. Alex wasn't. I stumbled backwards slightly, catching myself on the dresser. Every muscle in my body screamed fear. Every nerve was alive. My heart hammered against my ribs. This was no longer an exercise in fantasy or indulgence. This was survival. And then, I heard footsteps outside the apartment.
Slow.
Measured. Intentional. They weren't coming for Alex. They were coming for Alexandra. My breath caught. The impossible choice wasn't a secret anymore. It was a command. A warning. A reality I had to step into fully, or risk everything. I steadied myself. Checked my reflection one last time. Alexandra was ready. Alex didn't have a choice. The door handle rattled. The game had begun. The door handle rattled again, sharper this time, sending jolts of panic through me. My heels clicked against the floor as I instinctively straightened my back, lifted my chin, and let Alexandra's presence fill the room. Alex was trembling behind the surface, heart hammering, muscles tense, but Alexandra had to dominate. The doorknob turned slowly. Whoever or whatever was outside was patient, deliberate, waiting, watching, testing me. The door creaked open. Light spilled in from a hallway. A figure stepped through. Emma. Or someone perfectly pretending to be her. My stomach dropped. She or they looked like Emma. Same hair, same posture, same subtle perfume. But there was something sharper, more precise. Her eyes scanned me, from head to toe, like a hawk examining prey. "You're ready?" The words were calm, almost teasing, but carried an edge that made my knees threaten to buckle. Alexandra squared her shoulders. "I am," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. A faint smirk touched Emma's lips, or the person playing her role. She circled me slowly, every step deliberate, like a choreographer judging a performer. "The dress fits well," she said, voice low and scrutinizing. "The heels you can manage balance, surprisingly. And the wig almost perfect." "Almost," I whispered, panic tightening in my chest. "Almost means there's room for improvement," she replied softly. Her gaze drilled into me. Every move, every glance, every gesture must be Alexandra. There's no margin for error. I swallowed hard, my throat dry as dust. Alexandra was alive, poised, graceful. Alex was shaking. But the impossible choice wasn't about Alex. It was about survival, about proving I could embody Alexandra under scrutiny, under pressure, under judgment. Emma, or her double, produced a small handheld mirror and held it up in front of me. "Your expression," she said. "Focus. Alexandra isn't scared. She's confident, inviting, untouchable. Project that." I stared at my reflection, seeing Alexandra fully now. Every detail, the soft pink of lips, the arch of brows, the shimmer in my eyes. Every inch of the dress hugged my body, amplifying curves I had hidden for years. My legs trembled in the heels, but Alexandra's gaze commanded control. "Take a step forward," Emma instructed. My first step was hesitant. The heels wobbled slightly. A tremor ran up my legs. But Alexandra's posture corrected, subtly, imperceptibly. Step 2. Step 3. Confidence bloomed with each motion, a fragile flower pushing through concrete. She clapped once, soft, precise, approving. Better. But not enough.
Eyes.
Alexandra never falters with her gaze. Look at me, or at the mirror. Do not flinch. I raised my chin higher, forcing Alex to recede into the background. Alexandra dominated. My heartbeat slowed fractionally. The thrill of transformation surged, mingling with fear. It was intoxicating. Dangerous. Electric. "Good," Emma said. She produced a small card from her pocket. "A photograph. Your task tonight," she explained, "is to convince everyone in this house that Alexandra is real. They will not question. They will not doubt. They will watch, and they will measure you. Do not fail." I examined the card. It showed a scene from Emma's study. Empty, dimly lit, and ominously quiet. Alexandra had to enter that space, own it, convince observers that she was real, not Alex. Not a fantasy.
Real.
The knock at the study door sounded almost immediately, sharp and deliberate. Someone or multiple someones had arrived early. My pulse spiked. Alexandra's composure was tested. Step by step, I moved toward the door, heels clicking lightly but authoritatively on the floor. Every motion was rehearsed in private for years, but never executed under the threat of judgment, surveillance, or exposure. I opened the study door slowly. Light flooded in and I froze. 3 figures stood in the room. Observers. Measuring. Judging. Eyes locked onto Alexandra. The tallest stepped forward, arms crossed. "We've been watching. Show us she's convincing," he said, voice calm but commanding. Alexandra's chest lifted. Confidence surged. I mimicked a slow, elegant spin, allowing the dress to flare, feeling the fabric whisper along my legs. The heels felt like instruments of power rather than obstacles. Alexandra existed here, in this room, in this moment, under the scrutiny of strangers and loved ones alike. The observers murmured amongst themselves. Approving, hesitant, calculating. Alexandra held their gaze, every movement precise, deliberate. I felt a rush of pride and terror. One mistake, one misstep, could unravel everything. Emma, or her double, stepped forward, eyes narrowing slightly. Closer.
Eyes.
Smile. Alexandra seduces, yes, but she controls. Remember that. I adjusted my stance, angled my hips, tilted my head, and smiled, soft, confident, and commanding. Alexandra had arrived. Alex receded further into the shadows, a silent witness. "Better," Emma said almost approvingly. "But you must go further. Enter the lounge. Command presence. Project herself into the world." Alexandra doesn't exist in corners. She fills rooms. My heartbeat raced. The lounge was larger, with multiple observers scattered throughout, watching every inch of me. The impossible choice loomed in every corner. Step by step, I walked into the lounge, heels clicking authoritatively. My reflection in the polished floor mirrored confidence, elegance, danger. Alexandra had emerged fully, alive, commanding, undeniable. A soft gasp echoed. I realized with a jolt. Someone, outside my rehearsal, outside Emma's test, had entered. Another layer of tension. Alexandra could not falter. My pulse surged. Every fiber in my body was on high alert. Fear, thrill, anticipation, and desire collided in a storm of adrenaline. Alexandra was no longer just a reflection in a mirror. She was real. She was commanding. She was dangerous. And the observers were watching. The lounge felt impossibly large now. Alexandra's heels clicked sharply against the polished floor, each step echoing like a warning shot. Observers stood frozen, watching my every movement. Their eyes burned into me, evaluating, judging, measuring. Alex's nerves surged, a storm of panic behind Alexandra's poised exterior, but there was no turning back. I had committed. I was fully her now. Alexandra, the persona that had been whispered into life by Emma's impossible choice. I moved deliberately, fluidly, the dress swaying perfectly with each motion. My hands were steady on instinct, though every muscle in my body screamed tension. This wasn't just a performance. This was survival. Every gesture mattered. Every glance was a test. "Stop," Emma's voice rang out, low but commanding. Alexandra froze mid-step, eyes locked on hers. She approached slowly, circling me again like a hawk examining prey. Her gaze was sharp, unyielding. "You're close," she said, "but not convincing enough. There's a difference between looking the part and being the part." I swallowed hard, nerves blazing. "Being the part," I repeated softly, letting Alexandra internalize the mantra. Alex recoiled slightly, a whisper of fear in the corners of my mind. Alexandra straightened further, filled the room with presence. The impossible choice wasn't a hypothetical anymore, it was absolute. I had to embody her fully. The observers shifted slightly, murmuring amongst themselves. Their reactions were subtle, but undeniable. Alexandra's power was growing. Alex felt the thrill of transformation, the rush of stepping into a persona that demanded attention, respect, and control. But the fear had only intensified. Then, a sudden sound, a sharp knock on the lounge entrance. Not Yemame. Not her double. Someone else. My pulse spiked. Heart hammering, I glanced toward the door. A tall figure entered. A stranger. Unknown, intimidating. Eyes assessing, calculating. Alexandra had to act fast. Hesitation could be catastrophic. "Who's this?" a voice murmured from the crowd of observers. Alexandra stepped forward, heels clicking with authority. "I am Alexandra," I said, voice firm, eyes locked on the stranger. "And you will respect that." The stranger smirked, unimpressed, circling the room. Every step was deliberate, challenging, threatening. My stomach churned. Alex recoiled internally, but Alexandra's posture remained unbroken. I adjusted the tilt of my head, letting the dress sway precisely, projecting both confidence and defiance. The stranger approached, standing dangerously close. "So, this is the one?" he asked, voice low, testing, dangerous. "The one who must convince everyone she exists." Alexandra's gaze didn't falter. "I exist," I replied firmly. "And you will see that." He tilted his head, assessing, then suddenly lunged forward, grabbing the hem of the dress and pulling sharply. Alexandra staggered but regained balance in an instant. Adrenaline surged. Fear, thrill, and the power of transformation collided. I realized Alex fully receded. Alexandra commanded. The observers gasped, murmuring in shock. The stranger's actions were reckless, unexpected, but I held my ground. Alexandra's hands moved, guiding the fabric gracefully, turning the disruption into a controlled, elegant movement. The dress flared, the room's attention fixed entirely on me. Alexandra had turned the attack into a demonstration of poise, control, and beauty. Emma's voice cut through the tension. "Yes, that's it.
Adapt.
React. Own every challenge. Alexandra survives." The stranger froze, taken aback. For a moment, I felt invincible. The impossible choice had forced me into this moment, but I was thriving. Fear still lingered, but it had become fuel rather than chains. Every observer was watching, every movement analyzed, but Alexandra wasn't just performing. She was asserting dominance, presence, and identity. Then, without warning, a second figure entered the room. Emma herself. Her eyes locked onto me, a mix of awe, evaluation, and barely contained amusement. "Very good," she said softly, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. "But remember, the challenge isn't over. They're not convinced yet. Alexandra must survive the night." The room tightened with suspense. Multiple eyes focused on me. Alexandra's posture remained perfect, but inside, Alex's heartbeat raced. Every nerve screamed danger. Every motion demanded precision. Then the ultimate test. Emma gestured toward a large mirror on the opposite wall. "Look," she said, voice low, dangerous. "You must see yourself as they see you. Convince them, convince yourself." I approached the mirror cautiously, every step calculated. My reflection stared back, fully realized. The heels, the dress, the hair, the earrings, all perfectly in place. Alexandra's gaze was steady. The stranger, the observers, Emma, they all watched. My breath hitched. Every detail mattered. One mistake could undo everything. Alexandra lifted her chin higher, tilting her head elegantly. A soft, deliberate smile curved her lips. Confidence radiated from every pore. Alex trembled beneath the surface, but Alexandra owned the room. For the first time, I felt the full weight of transformation. Not just clothing or makeup, but identity, presence, survival. And then, an unexpected sound. The envelope I had dropped earlier rustled. It slid across the floor, as if moved by unseen hands. My pulse spiked. Was it EMMA? The observers? Or something else entirely? The tension exploded. Every eye in the room turned toward the envelope. Alexandra froze for a heartbeat, heart hammering. The impossible choice had led me here. The threat was tangible, immediate. The observers, the stranger, Emma, they were all watching. Alexandra had to survive. Alex had no choice but to trust her. I inhaled deeply, lifting the envelope carefully with trembling fingers. Alexandra's smile didn't waver. I had embraced the impossible. I had become her. The room held its breath. The observers waited. The stranger's smirk faltered. Emma's gaze sharpened. Every nerve in my body screamed tension, anticipation, and exhilaration. Alexandra stood poised, ready. The impossible choice had been made. And now the real test was about to begin. The room felt impossibly charged. Alexandra's heels clicked against the floor with authority, every step measured and deliberate, though Alex's heart thudded in panic beneath her chest. Observers surrounded me, evaluating, judging, waiting for the first crack in the facade. Every eye was on Alexandra, every breath measured. I realized fully, survival was no longer theoretical. It was absolute. The stranger from before stepped closer, arms crossed, a smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth. "You're impressive," he said, voice low and dangerous. "But surviving is more than appearances. Can you endure scrutiny? Can you maintain control under real pressure?" Alexandra straightened her shoulders, meeting his gaze head-on. Every ounce of her being radiated poise. Alex trembled beneath the surface, muscles tense, mind racing. The impossible choice wasn't just a challenge. It was a gauntlet, testing every fiber of identity and courage. Emma, or the woman perfectly impersonating her, moved to stand beside the stranger. Her eyes glinted with approval, but there was a warning there, sharp and precise. "This is only the beginning," she said softly. "Every observer, every detail, they will test you. Alexandra must respond, adapt, survive." The lounge's door opened again, and more figures entered, additional observers, all dressed formally, silent, intent. My pulse surged. The room had transformed from a stage into a battleground. Alexandra was no longer performing for imagination. She was performing for reality itself. A table was set in the center of the room. Documents, props, and small objects were arranged meticulously, each intended to test her composure. A cup of tea rested precariously on the edge, a fan positioned near it to create subtle movement. Every observer leaned in slightly, waiting, anticipating the first mistake. The stranger spoke again. "The test is simple. Maintain composure. React elegantly to every distraction. Prove Alexandra exists. Convince us." I swallowed, heart hammering, and Alexandra stepped forward. A soft gasp escaped the observers as her dress swayed with grace, the wig perfectly adjusted, her earrings catching the light. Alexandra's presence filled the room. Alex recoiled slightly behind the mask, nerves raw, but Alexandra exuded absolute command. The first challenge came suddenly. One observer moved quickly, brushing against the table, sending the cup of tea teetering dangerously. Time seemed to slow. Every nerve in my body screamed fear. Alexandra reacted instantly. A delicate hand shot out, stabilizing the cup with the smallest possible movement. The fluid didn't spill. The room held its breath. Alexandra's eyes met the observers, conveying control, elegance, and calm. "Impressive," the stranger said, a faint nod acknowledging the act. "But can you handle emotional pressure?" Before I could process, Emma stepped forward, placing a small photograph in front of me. Alex's face staring back, vulnerable, unprepared, entirely human. "Look at her," she said softly. "Remember what you are representing. Alexandra is perfection. Alexandra cannot falter, even when confronted with Alex." I stared at the photo, muscles tensing, breath catching. Alexandra's jaw tightened in determination. Alex's fear surged, but Alexandra's resolve overpowered it. I folded the photograph, returning it to the table with a slow, deliberate motion. Every observer leaned closer, eyes narrowing, measuring, judging. Alexandra had survived the first psychological test. But the pressure didn't let up. A sudden gust from the fan caught the hem of my dress, sending the fabric fluttering. A small slip, almost imperceptible, but enough to make Alex's heart jump violently. Alexandra reacted instantly, placing her hands gracefully to steady the fabric, turning potential disaster into deliberate elegance. Every movement screamed confidence. The observers murmured, impressed but unsatisfied. The challenge had just begun. The stranger's voice cut through the tension. Now, distractions. Alexandra must face chaos. He signaled, and the observers began subtle movements. Whispers, shifting positions, soft coughs, deliberate clinks of objects. Alexandra remained unwavering. Her posture was flawless, movements precise, gaze commanding. The room's tension escalated. Every misstep would be noticed. Every hesitation could unravel the transformation. And then, Emma raised her hand slightly, signaling a more dramatic test. A sudden shadow fell across the lounge, the lighting shifting to catch Alexandra in stark contrast. The observers reacted, squinting. The room felt surreal, the pressure suffocating. Alexandra's breathing remained controlled. Every inch of the persona was tested. Alex's heart thumped wildly, but Alexandra projected calm authority. Step by step, she moved across the room, the dress flowing, heels clicking, every gesture calculated. The impossible choice was no longer a question, it had manifested fully. Alexandra existed, alive, commanding, undeniable. A faint laugh echoed, mocking, deliberate, almost cruel. The stranger had moved closer, testing, intimidating. Alexandra did not flinch. Every observer held their breath. The room felt suspended in time, reality and performance intertwining in dangerous harmony. Alex's mind screamed retreat, but Alexandra pressed forward. She raised a hand, adjusting her hair slightly, turning the subtle intimidation into a display of elegance and control. The observers leaned in, eyes wide, captivated. The impossible choice had forged her. Alexandra was no longer a reflection. She was presence, identity, and survival incarnate. And yet, a shadow of doubt lingered. Somewhere in the room, unseen, the next test awaited. Alexandra had proven composure and elegance. But would it be enough when the real challenge arrived? The room felt suffocating now. Every observer's gaze was like a laser, measuring Alexandra's slightest movement, waiting for a crack in the perfection. Alex's pulse raced, muscles tense, mind screaming for escape, but Alexandra didn't flinch. She was poised, elegant, deadly precise. The stranger stepped forward again, a calculating smirk crossing his face. You've handled subtle distractions. Now, emotional pressure. Can Alexandra survive when confronted with her own identity? Before I could react, Emma placed a small box on the table. I hesitated, eyes narrowing. Inside were photographs. Alex's life laid bare. Casual mornings, private moments, hobbies, vulnerable expressions. The observers leaned closer, murmuring softly. The images weren't just memories, they were vulnerabilities, proof of Alex behind Alexandra. Alexandra's jaw tightened. This was no longer just a performance, it was a battle for control over identity itself. Every fiber of Alex screamed fear and exposure, but Alexandra dominated. I bent slightly, lifting the top photograph, glancing at it with deliberate calm, and placed it back slowly. Every observer watched the motion, noting the composure, the elegance. Good, the stranger said. But now, physical endurance. He gestured toward the lounge. A series of subtle obstacles had been placed along the floor, small objects, uneven steps, and delicate props. Alexandra had to navigate the space without hesitation, without faltering, without revealing the vulnerability Alex still carried underneath. The first step was a test of balance. My heels teetered slightly, the dress brushing a low table. Alexandra's hands moved with precision, redirecting the fabric smoothly. Step by step, I advanced, each movement deliberate, graceful, commanding. Alex's panic surged, but Alexandra's poise held firm. Observers whispered, noting every detail, every adjustment. Then, the stranger moved swiftly, creating a sudden distraction. A vase tipped precariously, a book slid across the floor. Alexandra reacted instantly, adjusting her step, redirecting the objects with minimal motion. The observer's eyes widened in approval, but their scrutiny intensified. Alexandra's reflection in a nearby mirror caught my attention. The image staring back was no longer Alex hiding. It was Alexandra, fully alive, commanding attention, radiating power and control. My heartbeat accelerated, not from fear alone, but from exhilaration. The impossible choice had forced me to evolve, to step fully into her persona, to survive under extreme pressure. But the challenges continued. Emma's voice cut through the tension, low and commanding. Now, social interaction. Alexandra must convince an ally while maintaining total control. Two observers stepped forward, smiling warmly, attempting casual conversation. Alexandra's voice remained steady, each word deliberate, measured, controlled. Alex's nervous stammer threatened to slip, but Alexandra maintained a flawless cadence. Every gesture, every smile, every tilt of the head was precise, intentional. The observers nodded subtly, impressed, but still judging. Suddenly, a third figure appeared, an unexpected guest, someone I didn't recognize. They approached with curiosity, questioning, probing Alexandra's composure. My pulse surged. Alex panicked internally. But Alexandra's demeanor remained unshakable. I responded with elegance and authority, every word calculated, every movement fluid. The observers leaned in, murmuring in approval. The impossible choice had created a persona capable of commanding a room, handling chaos, and asserting dominance, even under threat. Then, the stranger raised his voice. Final test for this stage: temptation and compromise. A small tray of champagne glasses appeared, positioned deliberately. Alexandra had to reach for the glasses, interact naturally, all while keeping composure. One slip, one hesitation, and the observers would detect vulnerability, exposing Alex beneath Alexandra. I took a deliberate step, extended a hand, and lifted a glass. Alexandra's elegance radiated. The observer's eyes followed every motion. Alex's panic surged, but Alexandra's control dominated, turning fear into performance. Every detail, every gesture, every breath conveyed authority and elegance. The room was silent for a moment. Then, a faint murmur of approval rippled through the observers. Emma's smile widened slightly, but her gaze remained sharp, unwavering. The stranger nodded subtly, acknowledging the performance, but tension still lingered. The impossible choice had been navigated successfully for now. A sudden sound, a chair scraping the floor, sharpened everyone's attention. Alexandra's pulse raced, balancing grace and alertness. Every observer's eyes were on her. Every detail mattered. Every heartbeat was scrutinized. I glanced around the room. Objects, props, and observers formed a gauntlet. The next stage of the test was imminent, and Alexandra's composure would be pushed even further. Alex trembled internally, but Alexandra was prepared. Fully poised. Fully aware. Fully alive. And then, Emma's voice cut through the tension, cold and precise. The night is far from over. Alexandra has survived the first phase, but the real challenge begins now. The impossible choice had brought me here. The observers were watching. The room's tension was electric. Alexandra's presence filled every corner, commanding attention, radiating authority, and demonstrating survival under pressure. I breathed deeply. Alexandra was ready. Alex had no choice. The gauntlet was just beginning. The lounge seemed to shrink around me. Every observer's gaze burned like fire, scrutinizing, analyzing, testing. Alexandra's heels clicked with deliberate precision, though Alex's nerves screamed beneath the surface. Every breath, every gesture, every tilt of the head was under microscopic observation. Failure was unthinkable. The stranger stepped forward again, eyes glinting with challenge. You've handled distractions, social interaction, and minor physical tests. Now the ultimate test: exposure. Alexandra's heart skipped, adrenaline surging. I knew what he meant. Everything I had built, every careful movement, every precise gesture, every ounce of control was about to be challenged. My secret, Alex, was no longer just my own. It hung in the air, exposed to judgment, ridicule, and potential ruin. Emma moved closer, her expression unreadable. "They will test your identity, Alexandra. If you falter, Alex will be exposed. Every weakness, every hesitation will be noted. You must survive, completely." The observers began whispering, plotting subtle moves to provoke a reaction. One approached with a hand extended, deliberately too close, testing personal space. Another shuffled papers noisily, creating distraction. The stranger leaned in, eyes sharp, calculating. The room became a minefield of tension. Alexandra adjusted her posture, shoulders squared, gaze locked on the most intimidating figure. Alex's panic tried to surge, threatening to break through, but Alexandra's control was absolute. I took a slow, deliberate step forward, projecting confidence, elegance, and command. Then came the first true provocation, a whispered question from the edge of the group. "Why are you doing this?" the voice asked softly but pointedly. "Why hide? Why pretend? Why transform?" Alexandra paused briefly, lips parting, eyes glinting with composure. "I am Alexandra," I replied, voice steady, deliberate. "This is who I must be. I choose this. I survive through this. And you'll see that Alexandra is real." The observers exchanged subtle glances. The tension thickened, like fog suffocating the room. Alex's heartbeat raced uncontrollably, but Alexandra held firm, moving with fluid precision. Every step, every gesture, every blink was calculated, purposeful. Then the stranger made a move I hadn't anticipated. He stepped forward, deliberately brushing against Alexandra's shoulder, testing reaction, control, and emotional endurance. My body tensed. Alexandra's mind activated. I adjusted instantly, redirecting motion gracefully, turning potential exposure into elegance. A sharp gasp echoed from one observer, followed by murmurs. Alexandra's composure was undeniable, but the room was now fully engaged in testing limits. Every whisper, every movement, every glance was calculated to provoke a flaw. Emma's voice cut sharply. Now, confrontation. From the far corner, a familiar figure appeared, someone I hadn't expected tonight. My pulse spiked instantly. Recognition hit. Shock. Vulnerability. Fear. Alex's heart lurched, threatening to betray Alexandra. But Alexandra's presence remained unbroken. The figure approached slowly, deliberately, eyes fixed on Alexandra. "So, this is the result," the voice said, low and measured. "All this effort, all this secrecy, for what?" Alexandra's chest rose with controlled calm. "For survival," I replied softly, voice steady.
For identity.
"For control. For choice. And I will not falter." The figure smirked slightly, moving closer, testing composure further. A hand brushed against the edge of the dress, a subtle, almost imperceptible tug. Alexandra reacted instantly, adjusting the fabric elegantly, transforming the threat into controlled movement. Observers leaned in, breath held. Then EMMA signaled subtly. A tray of props moved forward, a delicate necklace, a fragile glass, a feather-light scarf. Each item designed to provoke hesitation, disrupt balance, or expose fear. Alexandra reached for them methodically, every gesture precise, commanding attention, displaying elegance. Alex trembled internally, but Alexandra dominated fully. Suddenly, the lights flickered. A shadow moved across the room, unexpected, unplanned. Gasps rippled among the observers. Alexandra's pulse surged, senses heightened. Balance, control, precision, every skill honed under Emma's impossible choice, was tested simultaneously. One misstep could expose Alex entirely. I adjusted posture, tilted my head, letting the dress flow naturally, heels stable despite the sudden chaos. Alexandra's gaze swept the room, commanding presence, authority, and confidence. Every observer's eyes were locked, analyzing, judging, captivated. Then came the whisper. "Are you real, Alexandra? Or Is this all just a mask? Alexandra's heart thundered. Alex wanted to scream, flee, reveal everything. But Alexandra inhaled deeply, exhaling slowly, projecting calm, power, and certainty. I am real, I replied, voice unwavering. And this is who I am. Accept it, or be left behind. The observers leaned back slightly, tension palpable, uncertainty heavy. Even the stranger's smirk faltered. Emma's eyes glinted, satisfied but cautious. The impossible choice had forced Alexandra into full embodiment, and she had survived the first true exposure test. But the room was still tense. The challenge wasn't over. The observer's scrutiny remained unyielding. Every shadow, every whisper, every subtle movement held potential exposure. Alexandra's transformation had succeeded, but the ultimate test, complete mastery under relentless pressure, was yet to come. Alex's nerves throbbed in the background, but Alexandra had seized control. Every step, every breath, every movement now belonged to her. The impossible choice had forged her, sharpened her, and prepared her for what lay ahead. And yet, deep in the shadows of the lounge, an unseen threat loomed, waiting to push Alexandra beyond her limits. The room was electric with tension. Every observer, every subtle movement, every faint whisper amplified the stakes. Alexandra's heels clicked like metronomes, steady, precise, deliberate, each step a declaration of control. Beneath the polished exterior, Alex's heart raced uncontrollably, muscles tight, mind screaming, but Alexandra dominated fully. The impossible choice had forged her into this moment of ultimate pressure. Suddenly, Emma's voice cut through the charged atmosphere. Now, the test of ultimate vulnerability. A screen flickered on the far wall, displaying moments from Alex's private life. Pictures, messages, casual videos, everything exposed. Observers leaned in, murmuring, eyes scanning every detail. Alexandra froze for only a heartbeat, then straightened, lifting her chin. Every muscle screamed fear, yet every motion conveyed calm authority. You will not falter, the stranger said, stepping closer, voice low and deliberate. You must maintain control, poise, and identity while everything you've hidden is laid bare. Alexandra walked forward, deliberately, each step precise. The dress swayed perfectly with each motion. Every gesture projected elegance, confidence, and unshakable control. Alex's internal panic clawed, but Alexandra's persona absorbed it, transforming fear into a weapon of composure. The observers began a synchronized test: whispers, deliberate coughs, shifting positions, subtle gestures, and even a sudden jostle from behind. Alexandra's body tensed reflexively, but adjusted instantly. A gentle touch on the shoulder became an elegant flourish. A stumbled object became a poised movement. Each observer's test was met with unwavering calm. Then Yemme added another layer of pressure. She handed Alexandra a delicate envelope, marked with my own handwriting. The contents? Secrets, confessions, vulnerabilities I never intended anyone to see. Alexandra's jaw tightened. Alex's pulse spiked. But Alexandra opened it slowly, deliberately, letting the motion appear natural. She read silently, lips moving subtly, maintaining control over every reaction. Observers leaned forward, captivated. The stranger's gaze sharpened. How will you respond to exposure? Will you crumble? Or will Alexandra command even the moment of vulnerability? Alexandra's hands trembled just slightly, but only Alex noticed. Every movement remained deliberate, calculated, confident. The letters were folded neatly, placed back in the envelope. Alexandra's eyes swept the room, commanding presence, unwavering poise, authority radiating from every gesture. Suddenly, a sharp sound cut through the room, a chair toppling, a sudden crash. Alexandra's body reacted immediately, adjusting stance, directing attention away from the chaos. Observers murmured. Tension rippled through the air. Alex's heartbeat thundered, but Alexandra controlled the narrative entirely, turning potential disaster into demonstration of flawless elegance and poise. Then, from the corner, an unexpected figure emerged, someone entirely unanticipated. Their arrival was deliberate, threatening, and immediate. Alexandra froze for only a fraction of a second, the tiniest crack, but enough to trigger adrenaline in Alex. The figure approached slowly, eyes fixed, evaluating, judging. "Is this the result of your choices?" the newcomer asked, voice low, deliberate. "All this secrecy, all this performance for what?" Alexandra lifted her chin higher, tilting her head slightly, letting the dress flow elegantly. Her voice was soft but firm. "For survival. For identity. For mastery of self. I will not falter, no matter who questions me." The stranger nodded slowly, acknowledging the composure. Observers' murmurs intensified. The tension was at its peak. Every detail mattered. A tilt of the head, a flick of the wrist, a breath drawn at the right moment. Alexandra's survival depended on flawless execution, control, and authority. Then came Emma's subtle signal, a sudden gust from a hidden fan, a delicate prop brushing near the heels, a soft rustle of the envelope. Each minor disruption was designed to provoke hesitation or fear. Alexandra adjusted instantly, posture perfect, movements graceful, composure absolute. The observers gasped softly, captivated. Alex's mind screamed, desperate for retreat, for safety. But Alexandra's persona dominated, absorbing fear and transforming it into controlled elegance. Every challenge, every provocation, every obstacle was met with grace, precision, and authority. Finally, the stranger stepped forward, hands raised. "You have survived exposure, distraction, social tests, and chaos. But the ultimate challenge remains. Can Alexandra remain herself when every secret, every vulnerability, every fear is tested at once?" Alexandra's eyes swept the room, scanning every observer, every motion, every subtle threat. Her heart raced, pulse surging with adrenaline, yet every movement remained deliberate. The impossible choice had forged her, sharpened her instincts, and transformed fear into performance. The room fell silent. Observers leaned forward, breathless. Every nerve, every fiber of Alex's body screamed danger, panic, vulnerability. But Alexandra's poise was flawless. Every gesture, every motion, every glance projected control, elegance, and undeniable authority. And then the ultimate challenge arrived, a single, unexpected movement from Emma herself. A subtle smirk, a tilt of her head, signaling that Alexandra was on the cusp of the final revelation. Every eye in the room followed her. Every heartbeat synchronized with tension. The impossible choice had created Alexandra, powerful, elegant, unshakable. But the final test was still unfolding, and the suspense had reached its absolute peak. The room's tension had reached a breaking point. Every observer's gaze pierced Alexandra, every subtle movement felt magnified, and every whisper amplified the stakes. The impossible choice had pushed Alex to the brink, but Alexandra now dominated fully, her presence radiating power, poise, and unwavering control. Emma's eyes glinted with calculated expectation. "Now, the final confrontation," she said, her voice sharp yet measured. "Alexandra must prove she is unshakable. Every doubt, every fear, every secret must be confronted and mastered." The stranger moved to stand directly in front of Alexandra, a faint smirk on his lips. "Everything is exposed now. Your identity, your vulnerability, your past. Can you maintain composure when the walls close in?" Alexandra's chest rose steadily, each breath controlled. The letters, the photos, the whispers, the chaos, they all converged into one overwhelming challenge. Alex's panic surged violently beneath the surface, threatening to betray everything. But Alexandra absorbed it, transforming every ounce of fear into deliberate elegance, measured movement, and flawless control. From the far corner, a figure stepped forward, unexpected, imposing, and questioning Alexandra's resolve. Their eyes locked onto hers, searching for weakness. The observers leaned in, collectively holding their breath. This was the ultimate test. Confrontation, judgment, and scrutiny rolled into a single moment. The figure spoke softly but deliberately, words dripping with challenge. All this for what? For a mask? For performance?
Who are you really?
Alexandra's jaw tightened. For a heartbeat, Alex wanted to scream, to flee, to reveal the truth. But Alexandra moved forward, tilting her head with perfect grace, the dress swaying effortlessly. Her voice was soft but commanding. I am Alexandra. I choose this. I own this. And no one will define me but me. A tense silence fell across the room. Observers exchanged subtle glances, leaning in closer. The stranger's smirk faltered slightly, but he remained composed. Every subtle detail mattered now. The tilt of the head, the rhythm of the heels, the flow of the dress, the steady gaze. Alexandra projected control over every aspect of the impossible challenge. Then Emma's signal arrived, a slight tilt of the head, a subtle step forward. Alexandra understood immediately. Another wave of minor obstacles appeared, props, a soft breeze, the rustling of letters, the movement of a chair. Each designed to provoke hesitation, reveal fear, or disrupt composure. Alexandra adjusted instantaneously. Every gesture became a fluid motion of elegance. A drop scarf was caught with perfect precision. A tilted chair became a graceful pivot. Every challenge, every disruption, every subtle provocation was met with unshakable control. Alex's heart raced violently, but Alexandra's presence dominated the space. The observers murmured softly, captivated. The impossible choice had forced Alex into transformation, but Alexandra now embodied mastery. Every ounce of vulnerability had been tested. Every fear had been confronted. Every observer watched, evaluating, analyzing, and silently acknowledging her triumph. Then came the final, subtle test. Emma placed a mirror in front of Alexandra, angled perfectly to reflect both Alex and Alexandra simultaneously. The reflection was impossible to ignore. One persona, two selves, intertwined in a single image. Alex's fear surged uncontrollably. Could the duality be maintained? Could the performance hold under the weight of total self-awareness? Alexandra took a slow, deliberate breath. Every muscle tensed briefly, then relaxed. I met my own reflection, gaze steady, posture commanding. Every heartbeat, every tremor, every shadow of fear was absorbed and transformed into elegance, composure, and undeniable control. The impossible choice had forced Alexandra to become fully alive, fully aware, and fully dominant over the duality of identity. The observers leaned back, some nodding subtly, others remaining skeptical, but all captivated. The stranger's smirk returned, faint but acknowledging. Emma's eyes glinted with satisfaction, yet remained sharp. The room had become a testament to transformation, control, and survival. And then, just as Alexandra exhaled in apparent relief, a sudden sound shattered the tense calm. A key turning in the lock. The room's focus shifted instantly. Every observer, every breath, every movement froze. Emma's expression tightened. Alexandra's posture stiffened. Alex's panic surged uncontrollably beneath the flawless exterior. The door creaked open slowly. A shadow filled the threshold, someone entirely unexpected. Alexandra's mind raced, every contingency flashing through like lightning. Every instinct, every ounce of control, every skill honed through impossible choice and relentless pressure was put to the ultimate test. Time seemed to slow. The observer's whispers ceased. The stranger stepped back slightly, eyebrows raised. Emma's voice was a low, tense murmur. This is the final moment. Alexandra must survive. Alexandra's gaze fixed on the shadow in the doorway. Every heartbeat thundered in my chest. Alex wanted to scream, to flee, to drop the persona entirely. But Alexandra, poised, elegant, commanding, stood unflinching. The impossible choice had forged her fully. Identity, control, and survival intertwined in a single presence. And then, the shadow moved closer, a single word breaking the silence. Alex. The room froze. Alexandra's perfect control, the impossible choice, and every ounce of courage were on the line. One revelation could undo everything. One slip could expose every secret. One moment could change everything. And at that precise instant, the story paused, suspended in tension, leaving the impossible choice, the dual identity, and Alexandra's survival hanging by a thread. The shadow in the doorway stood frozen for a heartbeat, eyes wide with recognition. The word had barely left their lips. Alex. Before the room seemed to constrict, each observer holding their breath. Time slowed, every second stretching like an eternity. Alexandra's poised, flawless exterior met the gaze of the unexpected visitor, and beneath it, Alex's heart thundered violently, threatening to betray the secret meticulously maintained. The impossible choice, the relentless tests, the ultimate confrontation, all had led to this single, precarious moment. Every fiber of Alexandra's being screamed to remain perfect, elegant, composed, and untouchable. Yet Alex's fear clawed at the edges, a silent tremor beneath the surface of calm. Alexandra, the voice faltered, disbelief lacing the tone. Is that really you? Alexandra's chest rose in a slow, deliberate breath. A fraction of hesitation, barely perceptible, flashed across the mirrored reflection of the room. But Alexandra's control snapped it away, replacing it with flawless poise. It is, she said softly, deliberately, every word weighted with authority and resolve. And it is who I must be. The visitors and observers leaned forward, the air thick with tension. Every motion, every detail mattered. Every flicker of emotion, every slight tremor, could reveal Alex beneath Alexandra, shattering the duality that had been so carefully maintained. The impossible choice had transformed a private fear into a commanding presence, but now the ultimate test was the judgment of someone who had known Alex intimately. The figure stepped closer, hesitant, uncertain. Their gaze swept over the elegant dress, the perfectly styled hair, the poised stance, and the confident smile that had carried Alexandra through countless trials. Yet their eyes flickered to the smallest detail, the tension in the hands, the subtle tremor in the pulse, the fleeting shadow of Alex hiding beneath. Why now? They whispered, barely audible. Why this? Why her? Alexandra's eyes met theirs squarely. The room seemed to fade around the edges. Every observer, every subtle motion, every detail was secondary to this confrontation. The impossible choice, the dress, the heels, the makeup, the elegance had been about survival, identity, and command. And now, the question was personal. I chose this, Alexandra said, voice soft yet unwavering. I chose to be this version of myself. Not for approval, not for anyone else, but because it is who I must be to survive, to live, to own my identity. The figure's lips parted in disbelief. A flicker of recognition, anger, confusion, and astonishment danced across their features. Every movement of Alexandra, every gesture, tilt of the head, graceful pivot, was a display of control, but also an invitation to the unknown. Would they accept this new reality? Or would the revelation shatter everything? Emma's eyes glinted from across the room. Observers murmured softly, tension mounting. The stranger who had orchestrated the trials leaned back slightly, nodding subtly, acknowledging the resilience displayed. Yet the final judgment, the emotional verdict from someone who had known Alex intimately, loomed like a storm on the horizon. Alexandra took another deliberate step forward, heels clicking softly but deliberately against the floor. Every motion radiated authority, elegance, and unflinching confidence. The shadowed figure flinched slightly, uncertain, questioning, captivated by the transformation, yet hesitant to accept the reality of dual identities existing in a single body. Then, without warning, the unexpected visitor's hand reached out, not aggressively, but trembling slightly. A gesture of both curiosity and confrontation. Alexandra's pulse surged, Alex's nerves screaming silently beneath the polished exterior. Could the impossible choice withstand the intimate scrutiny? Could the carefully constructed persona survive emotional proximity? The room held its collective breath. Observers, Emma, the stranger, all silent, waiting. One moment, one word, one motion could undo everything. The envelope of secrets, the photographs, the letters, all irrelevant now compared to the human confrontation unfolding. Alexandra extended her hand slowly, deliberately, maintaining perfect composure, every movement calculated. Alex's pulse thundered, adrenaline coursing through every vein. The impossible choice had forged control, resilience, and poise, but this was the first truly personal challenge, a direct confrontation with someone who knew Alex before Alexandra existed. The shadowed figure's hand hesitated inches away. A flicker of doubt, a quiver of emotion, passed through their gaze. Alexandra's eyes held steady, unyielding, commanding trust, respect, and acceptance without a word. The tension was palpable, electric, suffocating. Suddenly, the lights flickered. The room's temperature seemed to drop. Observers leaned closer, eyes wide. Emma's lips curved into a faint, knowing smile, signaling that the final test was near, but unresolved. The figure finally spoke, voice low, trembling. I don't know if I can accept this, but I need to understand. Alexandra nodded slightly, graceful, elegant, and entirely in control. Then watch. Then see. And when you're ready, decide. The room froze. Every observer, every subtle motion, every shadow of doubt, held suspended in that single instant. Alex's heartbeat thundered, threatening to betray everything, but Alexandra's presence dominated. The impossible choice, the dress, the heels, the elegance, the control, had led here to the precipice of revelation and confrontation. And just as the hand hovered, inches from contact, the sound of another key turning echoed through the hallway. The door at the far end of the room clicked slowly, and a second shadow appeared in the threshold. The room's tension doubled instantly. Alexandra froze, poised, every fiber of control and elegance on high alert. The impossible choice had created her, tested her, and transformed her. But now, the stakes had escalated beyond anything she had faced. The observers leaned in, whispering. Emma's eyes narrowed, gleaming with intrigue. The first figure's hand paused midair, eyes wide with shock. Alexandra's heart raced beneath the surface, Alex's fear threatening to crack the polished exterior. And then, with the room holding its collective breath, everything stopped. The screen went black. The story paused at the apex of suspense, leaving every secret, every identity, every impossible choice dangling on a knife edge. Alexandra's future, Alex's secret, and the responses of those who knew him, or her, remained unresolved. Who would accept? Who would reject? Who would uncover the truth first? The impossible choice had changed everything, yet the final outcome was still a mystery. And with that, the screen faded to black, leaving viewers on the edge of their seats, hearts pounding, minds racing, desperate to know what would happen next.